As the Dean of Engineering at Ohio State University, Engineering Dean David B. Williams is responsible for the strategic vision, mission, and goals of the college, oversees the education of more than 10,000 undergraduate and graduate students, leads a research program that expends $150 million annually, and is responsible for the administration of 950 combined faculty, research scientists, and staff. Williams served as the fifth president of the University of Alabama in Huntsville from 2007 through 2011. Before joining UA Huntsville, Williams spent 31 years at Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where he was a senior professor of materials science and engineering. He has given over 300 invited talks in 30 countries. A current visiting professor at the University of Manchester School of Materials, he is an honor fellow of the Royal Microscopical Society, one of less than 50 Americans so honored in the 180 years of that society's existence. In addition, he is a fellow of 8 other professional societies in the areas of electron microscopy, materials science, aviation, and aerospace engineering. And with all of this background and expertise, Dean Williams is a leader. And to get some leadership insight from one of the best, please welcome David B. Williams. Dave?
Scott, thank you very much. And thank you to Joanne in absentia for inviting me to come and talk. I appreciate the invitation, and I thank you for your attendance today. I have with me Laura Alvarez, who is my executive assistant, and also my chief technology officer. So Laura, if you could please put up the cover slide, that would be great. So what I thought I would do today is just give you a little insight into some of the things that we do that you might not know that engineers do. And so hence the title. Many of you I know are familiar with engineering. I saw some names on the list that I recognize, and welcome to our alumni who are listening. Areas like mechanical engineering, civil engineering, and so on are very often what most people are familiar with when it comes to engineering. We make things, we build things, bridges, cars, airplanes, and so on. But there are other things that we do in the College of Engineering that I thought I'd like to share with you today, and just a very small sampling of what we do. The next slide, please, Laura. This just gives you some idea of the scale and the quality of the engineering college. You mentioned already, Scott, the over 10,000 students that we have. We turn out about 2,600 of those with masters, with PhDs, and with bachelor's degrees every year. And 50% of those stay in Ohio, and 50% of those stay in Central Ohio. So there's about 600 engineers going into the Central Ohio economy every year out of the College of Engineering. Their average ACT of the incoming freshman class is about 31. So I would never have got into this college when I was a graduating high school student. And that is by far the highest in the university. We do other things. 25 companies spun out of our faculty, staff, and students. An increasing amount of diversity in the college, which we worked very hard at over the last several years. Over 1,000 alumni leading companies at various C-suite levels. And much of our investment comes from industry, close to $50 million a year of income from research. In fact, our overall budget is well over $300 million a year, which means we spend $1 million every working day. To put that in perspective for some of you, the athletics budget is just over $200 million. So we're a very large operation compared to Ohio State athletics. So next slide is a measure of where we're moving forward to. I've been dean now in my 10th year. We just announced last week, President Johnson, the appointment of Ayanna Howard from Georgia Tech as the next dean of the College of Engineering. While I happen to be or was an expert in materials and aerospace alloys and so on, Ayanna is an expert in robotics, in digital technologies, and artificial intelligence. I represent in so many ways the 20th century of engineering. Ayanna represents in so many ways the 21st century of engineering, and I look forward to helping her take over the leadership of the college for the next academic year. So let me just give you a little bit of insight into 3 things that we do that perhaps you might not know as typical for engineering colleges. So the next slide, please. Just this last week, we opened with the James Comprehensive Cancer Center, a new center for cancer engineering. This is actually to engineer the cures for cancer. We do this in many different ways, but I want to highlight one that actually comes out of materials engineering here. So the next slide talks about our Center for Electron Microscopy and Analysis, which until recently was part of the Department of Materials Science and Engineering. Electron microscopy, and Scott, you said that very well. If you can say microscopy, you are one. This center, which is out on West Campus, is the largest in the United States, over $40 million of high-end instrumentation there. Electron microscopes are big machines for looking at little things, and the picture you see on the right, that box, is our latest cryo-electron microscope. You can have one for $8 million if you've got nothing better to spend it on. And as you can see on the left, the operators sit outside the room where the microscope is, because the slightest movement, including something like my voice that moves the air, would disturb the resolution of these microscopes, which can in fact envisage the structure of everything from metals and alloys to viruses down at the atomic level. So the next slide talks about cryo-electron microscopy, and this is what is used to image cancer cells and to image viruses. This is the latest in technology that won the Nobel Prize a couple of years ago. And the picture on the left shows a researcher freezing a specimen down to liquid nitrogen temperatures about -180 Celsius, and then inserting that frozen sample into the guts of the electron microscope. You can see inside the box there on the bottom left. And on the right is a schematic diagram that shows how we use magnets to focus very high energy beams of electrons that are scattered by the sample, which is a very thin piece, in this particular case, of small protein particles. And the scattering is picked up by detectors, and it gives us a picture of the molecules. Now, that usually takes me about 44 lectures to explain in detail, so I've glossed over a little bit. But the point is that by freezing the specimen, we can preserve the molecular structure of our proteins and our viruses. And you're all now very familiar with the picture of the coronavirus with all the little spiky bits on it. That is a schematic of a cryo-electron microscope image of the coronavirus. So that is now perhaps one of the most familiar techniques to all of the world, never mind just to those of us in the engineering college. So the next slide just shows some examples of how we can use this cryomicroscopy with a process called tomography that allows us to take multiple images, then put them in the computer and reproduce a 3-dimensional structure, in this particular case, of the microtubule system and the mitochondria, which are parts of the cells that make up ovarian cancer in this case. And by using this technology, we can differentiate cells that have cancer from those that are healthy. This work is a few years old, and we've now taken this technology and got it from the image scale you can see here, which is only at the micrometer level, down a few orders of magnitude to the nanometer level. And without going into too many details, because I don't understand it all, what this allows us to do is to develop drugs that can attach onto specific viruses or specific cancer cells to stop them multiplying and thereby help to cure the cancer. The next slide, please. In addition to providing clean water, as we have done as a nation to ourselves for many years, increasingly the supply of clean water is becoming a problem, not just in third world countries, but as we've seen in Toledo only a little while ago, and Flint, indeed, water problems, clean water problems are happening even in our own country. And we have created a Global Water Institute, partnering with many institutions to bring the technology to communities that don't routinely have access to clean water. And this is solar-powered pumping of water from wells that are drilled into the water table. The solar power is free, and of course the solar power allows us to actually work the pumps without the use of diesel fuel, which means they are very robust and able to work for years quite easily. And the next slide shows some of the areas where we're bringing this water to in the United States, in particular in Appalachia and in the Navajo tribal lands, where historically there has been water poverty. Often in the case of the indigenous peoples' lands, it's because the land is water poor. In the case of Appalachia, it's a problem with contamination of the water supply. And we are doing this particularly in Tanzania. The next slide shows how we're mitigating water poverty by building sustainable water and agricultural enterprises in Tanzania and other countries in East Africa. At the top left, I'm talking to the engineer who designs and builds the water systems. If you go back, please, Laura, one more. Talking to the engineer who designs and builds the solar-powered water systems in the villages in Tanzania. And the pictures on the right show how the villagers are receiving for the first time water from a faucet rather than digging it up from the local water supply, which is usually contaminated. And as usual, it is the women who gather the water, as you can see in the bottom right. And now the women are using their water to develop their own small farms, as you see in the center there. And the women control the water and they control the agriculture, so they build their own businesses. The next slide shows that I was working with the National Football League. If you go to the next slide, please, Laura. The Water Boys, Chris Long, who played for the Patriots and the Eagles, has a foundation, and he raises the money to drill these wells, which cost about $55,000 a piece. And once the wells are drilled, then the villagers start their own franchises. And this shows, I'm actually part of that team climbing Mount Kilimanjaro last February, March, where this team, the large gentleman in the center is Ben Gardner of the San Francisco 49ers, who just came out of the Super Bowl. And we raised about $210,000 to drill 4 more wells. The picture on the left shows a woman collecting water from the stream by the school, which on the right now gathers its water from the faucet since we put the wells in. So it used to be that every day they had to pick the water from the stream, as on the left, which happened to run past the school latrines. And now they get it from the faucet on the right. So truly changing lives. The next slide just gives you a sense of what it takes to do this. These are the people we partner with for our Global Water Institute. And as you can see, it's not just the companies, it's also non-profits and NGOs around the world. So this is how we do research today. And let me come to the last example of what we do. If you go to the next slide, this is our Spine Research Institute. And spine problems afflict probably 80% of the people in the United States. The next slide. Our Spine Research Institute, which is directed by Bill Maris, who you see on the right here with some of his researchers, has for 30 years been developing engineering solutions to, as you can see, prevent, evaluate, and treat spine disorders. Bill says you're either somebody who has lower back problems or somebody who will have lower back problems. And the cost to the nation is $100 billion every year in lost work, workman's comp, and so on. And what Bill has done is use technology and high-end computation to build a model of the human spine, which is extraordinarily complicated and extraordinarily poorly engineered in terms of the ease that we have of damaging it. The next slide. What you see here on the left are computer models of the spine bending and of the neck bending, and gives you some idea of the complexity of the computer models that Bill has developed, where we understand the properties of the bone, of the ligaments, of the discs in the spine and in the neck. And we can measure the loads that occur on the bone and the discs in the computer. On the right is showing a good spine, and one on the the two models on the bottom right show a good spine being loaded, and on the right a spine with, as you can see, the red parts are titanium inserts into the spine, just like Tiger Woods had put in to help alleviate the damage to the discs. And if we go to the next slide, we can look at this in a bit more detail. And as your spine flexes very slowly, you can see the colors in the discs changing. And depending on the color, this is a measure of how much we're compressing the disc. And what's more important is using these models, and we build them up of your spine through your MRIs, the surgeon can operate. The surgeon can go into the computer model, whip out the discs, place in replacement discs, take out a diseased portion from cancer, and then running multiple different ways that, excuse me, I'm just turning my timer off, so I'm running over time, my apologies, that can run the operation, and there are multiple choices for operations, and then can run the spine through how you load it up over months and even years in a matter of seconds in the computer. And we can find out which operation is going to work best for you and your spine. And that's very important because 50% of spine surgeries fail. And this is what Bill and his Spine Research Institute is doing. Lastly, on the right is an image of a totally reconstructed spine where several pieces of the vertebrae are missing because they were eaten away by cancer. And this particular spine is inside somebody still today, and that person is walking with this extraordinary structure inside them because of the work of the Spine Research Institute. So next slide. This, again, is just a measure of how we do such complicated research. We do it in partnership with companies, with funding agencies, and with other universities. And that's what it takes to do research in engineering today. It's an across the nation and across the world collaboration. Again, thank you for listening. And I stress this is just a little dip into the complexity of engineering today. Next slide. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. And I'm more than happy to take any questions if there's time left.
Yep, Dean Williams, I think we'll have a few. I saw Scott Brown had a question.
Scott Brown shared a question from someone else, but I'll read it. Dean, you've left such a legacy. The airport is such an asset to the community and an economic impact. Looking in the future, how do you see the air transportation campus evolving to align with the college and community needs?
I would not like particularly to speak for Stephanie Morgan, who I think you've heard, but the plans at the airport, as we have shared with the community, is ultimately to lengthen the north runway, because currently it is not safe for the business jets of our major central Ohio businesses that use that airport to land if the runway is compromised, which it is whenever it's rained and it's not dry, or whenever there's a dusting of snow and we haven't got the plows out. So that's the biggest step forward that we look forward to happening, because then planes can land more safely. Businesses will continue to grow. We have just opened up one new corporate hangar for a Central Ohio business, and there are others in the pipeline. At the same time, we are educating close to 300 students to fly and to learn how to manage airports, 2-degree programs that come out of the airport operation. And at our Aerospace Research Center, we're doing over $10 million of research every year in everything from new turbine design to hypersonic studies for the US defense, and also in drone technology. And that airport, Don Scott Field, is the only one in the nation where we can fly drones in civil aviation airspace controlled by the FAA. So lots more that I could go into there, but it is a truly valued portion of the business of Central Ohio and will continue to be so.
Okay, thanks. Looks like Scott Whitlock is asking, could you review what the college has done with the TRC?
Yes, indeed. Again, the Transportation Research Center and the airport, in fact, are both unique facilities. No other college of engineering has responsibility for their own airport or indeed a major testing center like TRC. The Dean of Engineering is the chair of the board, so I shall be relinquishing that. But during the 9.5 years I've been on the board, we have expanded the remit of the Transportation Research Center. It is an independent proving ground, and TRC Inc., the controlling organization, is a 501c3 that oversees the operation, and that's an Ohio State affiliate organization. The TRC employs over 500 people, mainly out of Union and Logan counties, which are two of the more economically challenged counties. So we see ourselves as, again, a major driver for the economy in that part of Central Ohio. The land is owned by Honda, and Honda continues to be a major player and supporter of the Transportation Research Center. Most recently, Ohio State and the state of Ohio invested $45 million in building the nation's largest autonomous vehicle testing center. 6-lane highways, traffic lights, and so on, where we can run trucks in platoons up to 60 miles an hour. We're about to start designing a new part of that to simulate urban environments, particularly for companies that want to deliver parcels for some unknown reason, maybe want to do that autonomously. And I should also add that in addition to that investment, Honda's invested over $200 million in the last couple of years in a wind tunnel facility. We have hired faculty to work in that area, and in an antenna facility to ensure that the autonomous vehicles receive secure communications from the companies that are running them. And the antenna facility was designed by Ohio State engineering faculty. So that's over $250 million of new investment in TRC in the last couple of years.
That's great. Looks like CK has a question for you. CK?
Hi, David. Nice to see you again. And I know we'll miss you. Before I ask you a question, I just wanted to tell you that we have been working with Michael Hagenberger on his Marva project in Tanzania.
Yes, yes.
And Columbus Rotary has been contributing to his project. We've been working with him, and it's been a nice relationship. The question I have is, are you going to stay in Central Ohio, or are you going to go back to New England area where you came from, I think?
No way am I going back. Through Joanne, Margie and I got to buy this house, which is how I got to know her. And I'm in my home office here. We love Worthington and Columbus. We're staying here. I am already talking to President Johnson about roles that I can play post-dean. I believe 10 years is enough in any job, particularly one with authority and with a lot of responsibility. And it's time for somebody else to take that on. But I'm not ready to retire completely to the golf course yet. Okay. So I will be staying on, but my job is also to get out of the way of the next dean so I cast no shadow, and she can put her own team and plans in place for the College of Engineering.
Sounds good.
Thank you, CK.
Ron.
David, like you, I don't think I could even get into the College of Engineering these days. Your students are scary smart. Anyway, is the new dean on board yet?
No, she's not. President Johnson announced her to us a week ago today in our college leadership meeting, and that of itself is unusual. Since President Johnson is an engineer, she took a strong interest in this particular search, and I believe she was very instrumental in the final decision. So we know the next dean has the full support of President Johnson, and her start date will be March 1. But we are already working with her. It's fabulous to have somebody fully paid by Georgia Tech working with me. I hope full time too over the next few months. So we will have a lot of time to onboard her appropriately. You've got some sense of how large and complex we are as an operation. And so we'll take the time to make sure she onboards and gets to know all the ins and outs of the college, not to mention the 67,000 alumni who contribute so generously to the college. And so I will help her with that through the spring, and then go on to whatever my next role is.
There was another question regarding safeguarding of IP. Has OSU been a victim of any theft from, I guess, from China is what they're asking. Have we had any problems with China and IP?
Not that I am aware of. We have a very robust IT system with appropriate inbuilt precautions against phishing and against bots hiding in our system, and we run our own internal software masquerading as people trying to break into our system. So we have some pretty smart hackers too in our system, knowing how to protect ourselves from outside interference. That being said, this will be a constant battle. It's part of the way of life in the 21st century. I think something like 99.8% of emails that come to Ohio State don't reach the intended recipient at Ohio State because they are kept out. And since I get hundreds a day, that's rather pleasing that the several tens of thousands don't make it to my inbox. So again, so far so good, but we're only as good as the best that we have to in this particular battle.
So, well, thanks, Dean Williams. I really want to thank you and wish you, from me and from the Columbus Rotary Club, the best, all the best as you continue forward with whatever you get to do. We're glad to hear you're staying in the community, and that you'll still be at Ohio State at least for a period of time. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chip, and thank you everybody, and particularly Laura for helping me with the slides. So happy holidays, all of you. Bye-bye.
Happy holidays. Great presentation. Thanks. Well, I want to thank you for joining today. Please spread the word and let members, friends, and others know they're welcome to join us next Monday at noon. Next week, we'll hear from the Executive Director of the Ohio Hotel and Lodging Association, who will talk about the effect of COVID on that industry. As you can imagine, very devastating. And with that, we are adjourned. Have a great week.